Let's see what the Keebler's left me. I have to walk on logs, slippery logs, because I'm in a swamp, cedar swamp. Let me trim my field of view. Love these cedar roots because they're so useful. This tree is, oh, I'm testing you. That's actually a balsam fir. But these things are still pliable, so gosh, I could probably harvest some fir roots and then split them and use them for binding things or art projects. Regardless, I am in the proper garb for a below 40 day. You know, it's all relative. If you're used to cold weather, which is good, you must be one with the cold, and then it warms up into the 30s above freezing. Hey, it's shirt sleeve weather. Look at that. It's comfortable. I love the sound of the wind out here. The water, the moss, beautiful. Okay, subject number one. Let's see what the Keebler's left. We probably all recognize this form of bow. And this is my Valiant white cedar bow, 35 pounds at probably about 20 something inches. It's a nice bow. And I get requests to do various styles. I'm going to leave this West Coast style bow as far as commission work to the people that specialize in it. Why not? These are complex little bows, and there is a time between construction and the final curing of the sinew, so it's an involved process. And so I would steer people towards, and I'm going to call them masters because I do believe in my heart of hearts that they are masters at this style, people such as Primitive Lifeways. You know, if you want a West Coastie like a Hoopa or a Modoc or any one of a number issue replicas, I would go to the people on the West Coast that specialize in this style of bow. Fine people, there's a group of them, and you will not be disappointed. The one advantage that people on the West Coast have is they're able to actually gather the yew, Pacific yew, and the juniper, whereas I have to purchase it. So right off the bat, I have to provide an outlay of cash. The customer does. So, you know, that is what it is. But consider the people that do this solely, the more you do something, the better you get at it. And so I will tip my hat to the people on the West Coast, such as Primitive Lifeways, who does this more than other styles. Maybe it's the only style, I'm not sure. But that is a good reference. That is a good, solid reference. As I'm goofing around here, to get close, this is a sinew bowstring. This is a sinew bowstring. And I believe that all roads, as far as bowstrings go, lead to sinew or natural fiber bowstrings. And that is why I do not do the typical double loop, a loop on each side. I'm forcing you, if you purchase one of my bows, you're going to have to learn the ways of either an authentic style knot or a plated loop and a knot on the other side, which mimics the need for adjustability with a natural base string. And so, no two loop strings. I shall purchase that there, and that artistic piece of wood. Okay, I have a couple things to show you and yap about. Now there is a big lag time with a sinew back bow. Suppose I have to start one from scratch and somebody says, John, could you make a sinew bow for me? Sinew back bow. Well, you better be prepared to wait a lot of months. And so, I believe, unless I have a sinew back bow laying around already that's been just forgotten about in some corner, some far off region of my abode, that I would much prefer to have the basic woodwork, a tillered bow, but in need of being reduced, in the sinew backing, but not cured. And so I believe that is going to be my path in this life of bow making, at least for a while, because everything changes. You have to respond to conditions. Is that I would much rather sell, as this one is, going over to Growling Bear in Texas, as a bow kit. White ash, stave made, sinew backed, a subtle, very subtle gull wing, which could represent a very authentic bow. However, it is on the longish side, 54 inches, but it can be shortened because it's not tillered yet. And I have included in this purchase by Sinew Growling Bear, I have 2 tendons which he can pound to get the necessary sinew to wrap. Before or after tillering, you can wrap tips if you're confident that it's thin enough. You don't want to have a thin limb going to a thick tip, although it doesn't hurt anything, especially if it's recurve, because it becomes a static recurve. But the bow, the sinew has been cured long enough to tiller this thing. Couple tendons, a tillering string. Look at that little buckskin handle wrap, which he can or cannot use. And then, this is my bumblebee pattern, yellow and black, 2-ply reverse twisted B50 string with a plated loop and then a rat tail on the end. So it shall require knots. Now, what is it? Oh, in a bag of hide glue, which is enough glue for these. How do you mix your hide glue? Well, as I demonstrated with this little bow behind me, it can be a very thin mixture, but I would start out maybe 1/3 volume-wise in your cup, coffee mug, your glue pot, 1/3 volume-wise of this, and then 2/3 water. Between half and half and 1/3, 2/3, it will work. If it gets too thin, if you accidentally were bumped and spilled too much water in there, just let it evaporate out. Water evaporates. As far as the string grooves, you would say string grooves on each tip. However, a lot of these bows, because the knots are easier to work, they didn't have a string groove on both sides. There was just a single string groove, which works easier than 2 for various reasons, mystical reasons. A single string groove on the correct side, depending on you brace a bow right-handed or left-handed, works better than 2. Simply because it's easier to untie a knot if you only have 1 string groove. Sometimes I do 2 where the plated loop is, and then 1 on the other side. I saw a museum bow, a Lakota bow, short, I think it was like 38, 39, 40 inches, somewhere in there. A roughish sinew layer, thin sinew layer, and the string grooves were right on the end. They weren't on the sides, they were right on the end. So there is a variety of ways you can do string grooves. So I discussed this. Tillering. Okay, Mr. Bear, or I can call you Growling, your first name. Resist the temptation to go longbow tillering. A lot of people I see have the handle, the fades, non-bending here, and then a lot of the bend in the first third. On a short bow, resist the temptation to have the bend here. Work, in fact, out from the tips inward. You almost want to have it on the verge of whippy, where bend, 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 a little greater bend. It works really good with short bows, and you see that in a lot of native style bows. It could be in a response to, as far as string follow, the further out the tips you get the string follow, the less effect, relative effect that string follow will have on the total bow system. So you want to have, as you're sighting down it, pretend if you will, you're looking at a bow that has been used a lot, and I'm looking at the handle. If I see the string follow right here next to the handle, not a good sign. If I see a consistent amount of string follow, usually works more on self bows and sinew back bows, a nice even amount of string follow, that means I did my job well. If I see an even amount of string follow and then maybe a little bit of bump towards the end, towards the tips, that would be probably the best situation. String follow can tell you whether or not your tillering was good. You can use that for a guide. And so we have this here, standard tillering, tillering stick, tillering tree, a long string, being very careful. I've heard that you don't want to pull the bow back beyond its final draw weight. I never even get that close in the beginning stage. Shooting for a 50-pound bow, then maybe 20 pounds at the most. I do not want to yank this back. And again, until the limbs are balanced, do not attempt to brace your bow. because if they're not balanced, what you're going to see is a straight limb, a lot of bend on the other one, and you can potentially damage that limb that had too much bend. So you proceed very carefully. I had another thought on tillering. What was it? Maybe I'll remember. Let me set this on a couple of dry swamp things. Okay, growling bear, that's your stuff. Tillering string, the actual bowstring, the bow, 2 tendons, handle wrap, and glue. This is I'm pushing you towards the experts, the specialists, such as Primitive Lifeways for a West Coast style bow. I feel extremely comfortable with the gull wings. I've made so many of them. You know, after a lot of bows made in one style, there are not many surprises. This is a nice little one, peach-shaped, hop hornbeam. And so this would be an authentic length. I don't remember what it is, but it's short. It's a little bow. Hop hornbeam. This is going to be a very nice sinew-backed bow. These bows I feel comfortable. This might be sold too. I might put like a nice power layer. This would have a nice power layer of sinew on it because this hop hornbeam has a great crushing strength. And so with the short draw length, I want to take advantage of a high draw weight. And I want to get all the tension work away from the hop hornbeam and into the sinew. So this thing could possibly have almost 3 ounces of sinew on it. I want a powerful, thick layer of sinew that's going to bump all the tension work from this back surface to the sinew. And so this possibly could be sinew backed. Take a drink every time I say sinew. I would wait until it hardens and clarifies, and then I would say, for sale. You're going to wait 2 months, 3 months. Put it in the corner of your house. Forget about it. Let that sinew cure. And then you shall do the final tilling. This would eliminate a lot of work for you, but the process of tillering is something that you should force yourself. Today, say you're going to even get a stick and a knife or a rasp or a something, and you're going to play around with tillering, working on getting an even bend. Today is a great day to say, I'm going to do something. Whether or not it's eating right, you know, you're sitting around, you're eating pizza, it's hard because your job doesn't allow you to cook and stuff as much as you'd like. Today is a great day to start doing something that is good for you, and tillering is good for you. Well, the 2 Thunderbird bows, my PBs, I almost feel funny calling them paddle bows. They're paddle bows, not in reference to a West Coast paddle bow, native style, although there are similarities in design. But I am claiming the name paddle bow because they look like paddle bows. I could call it a propeller bow, but I like the name paddle bow. I do not want to offend any purists out there. Hopefully, the purists that may say, John, I don't like using acrylic paint, I don't like using B50, blah, blah, blah. Please understand that I run the gamut. This is a natural bow aside from the acrylic paint. But none of the working parts on this bow behind me are artificial. White cedar, sinew, mixture of elk and white-tailed deer, and a sinew bowstring, and weasel fur on the tips. Maybe a string silencers, but I think I said before, in my experience, because I use sinew strings quite often, I like sinew strings, they're not loud. And so if I took the furry tips off of these things, I do not believe for an instant that it would make the bow louder. It's a pretty quiet bow to begin with. There's a certain thing about mojo giving you confidence. Now there was a fellow on another site that said we have a name for hunters that paint their bow women. Come on, people. We're all part of this primitive archery group. There's no need to come into somebody's home, their channel, their home, and show such disrespect. In the past, if people like that come into my site, I just bounce them. Boom, deleted. You're not going to see my channel anymore. Because we should not quibble. We should not say that, like, a horse bow is better than a long bow, which is better than a this, which is better than this, which is better than a compound bow. What is better? Different strokes for different folks. Why don't we make an effort to try to get along a little bit before we destroy ourselves? There's room for all these different things out there. And with that, I'm going to pounce through the swamp, unstring this little guy, set it back in my Keebler lug, roam around here and see what's going on. Pause. Dramatic pause. It's kind of funny, but a person may not realize it, but you've seen like the turkeys coming up to me. I have deer that I can walk up to too. And if you're interested in such things, research, observe, study the social patterns of the creatures that live amongst us. I was so surprised when I first discovered, the language of deer. I can't speak their total language because I don't have the tail and I don't have the big ears. But the ears are primarily, a means of communication about warning. The tail is both a warning and it's also a greeting. They use that way. Or to express like happiness or whatever. The tail is a great sign. I, however, have eyes, a neck, a mouth, a tongue. Not to get too graphic here. But a little tidbit of information that may beguile, amuse, or impress you as far as deer language. They know when you're looking around like this, they understand that you are looking at something. When you mix that with like a warning sign, they can tell that exactly where you're looking, there's something to be aware of over there. Body language. And so I could go like this, and show warning, exuding that through my being, and they would understand that there's something bad over there, they need to go over there. What's really kind of cute, now I'm going to say cute, deer are vector directional. Isn't that impressive? I'm using those terms wrong. But if I was to look and nod and go, stick my tongue out, that means food over there. And what's funny is I have put food somewhere, and then one of my dear friends comes up, and greets me, and I go like this. They will walk over to exactly where I was looking. Okay, enough of that. Not going to let too much out of the bag right now. Look for my book on Amazon about how to speak deer. It'll be right next to the section on how to speak Klingon. And with that, I'm finding great joy in the swamp. Continue on. Be happy. Do something new today that you've been putting off. Get over that inertia. And thank you for watching my channel. And as always, I should reiterate again over and over again, more than once, thank you for being so civilized on my channel. It is a very rare occurrence that I get the YouTube trolls out there that will say something like ridiculous. And lastly, I want to say that I was so amazed. It made my morning when the fellow from Primitive Lifeways, pardon me, forgive me if, I believe his name is Jeff, I'm not sure. I apologize if I'm wrong. Said that he watches my videos, and that was like, wow. As a bow maker, it's always so pleasing, so satisfying to have another bow maker, especially one that you respect so much, say that he likes what you do. That was amazing, and I appreciate it greatly. And I'm sure there's others out there that make bows that watch my channel and have been so nice, so civilized, so respectful, the way we should be. And with that, I'm going to scurry along my slippery log, grabbing my little hot hornbeam bow. And if I slip, and if I go under, hey, I'm going to include it on the video. John doesn't have good balance anymore. John is old.